How to decide? You first. How to decide? Well, I don't know.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Kent with Bent, number 176, The Legend of Hovind, Kent's Awakening. And I have had a question as to what that is a reference to. It is a reference to the third Legend of Zelda game. We're going through all of the Legend of Zelda games because I don't want to have to think about titles very much. Because, guys, we're coming up on like 200 of these. Right? Like, there's only so many movie titles I can work the name Kent into. Every time I think I have a new one, I'm like, oh wait, 3 Angry Kents. I check. I'm like, no, I did that one. Hovind in the Woods. No, I did that one. It's like, yeah, it's tough. So if I can take a shortcut, I will. And this is the shortcut we're using right now. Bent, how you doing?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
Doing all right. I've got myself a dark and stormy in this wonderful Mugato tiki mug here. What do you got?
Very nice. I have Mountain Dew Baja Blast.
All right.
In this glass.
All right. Very nice. Let's see. I think I do have a thank you before we actually start really working on this. So, let's see. Lucas Flowers gave me some cheesy bulldog ramen, and I want to say thank you very much. I had a bowl today. It was my first bowl of that pack, so thank you very much. I really appreciate that. If any of you wants to get that kind of shout out, just grab something off that wish list. So yeah. Do you have any? I think the last thing you got was from you, right? It wasn't a gift.
That is correct. Yes.
Okay. All right. So yeah. Oh, for $2, Naramdaput says abandoned by Kip. He who enter here. Thank you very much. So the first thing I want to say is normally we have a 30 super chat goal set to $5 super chats. Currently, the goal is set to 20 super chats, which is lower, but they're set to $10 super chats. So, yeah, it's the yellow kind, if you're not sure what that converts to in your local currency. And the reason is, frankly, I don't want to take away the super chat goal because people like it, but also, I would like a break, but also, I am willing to not take that break for enough super chats. And by take a break, I mean take a break from wearing the suit. It is getting a little bit... This is like, what, the 5th time in a row I've worn it?
Something like that.
Yeah.
It's quite a bit.
Yeah. It could use some time. I could use some time not wearing it. And also, probably going to get it dry. Probably needs that point. So, yeah. But hey, then again, if you guys are like, no, you must wear the suit, I will do it. But not tomorrow, because I do have a show tomorrow. All right, so we are here to talk about Kent Hovind. Before we do, we have the Kent Hovind, or just general Dapper Dinosaur drinking game, which we slightly modify depending on the creationist. So let's start going over that. Bent, do you want to do it, or should I?
I like it when you do it.
Okay. Fair. So, first of all, we will take a drink if Kent Hovind says something that's too stupid, because we need to cool our brains down. We need some brain coolant. That is probably... I say it's our most common. I'm not sure that's true anymore. I think our most common might actually be gifted membership. But it comes up, because Kent is extremely stupid. But also, Bent and I have built up a little bit of a tolerance for his level of stupid, so we probably don't drink as often as maybe we should for how stupid he is. So there is that. We'll also take a drink anytime Kent Hovind actually gets a fact correct, but it's not just something he's reading from a source. So if he's got some book open and he just reads from it, and then he's like, oh, see, that was right. Yeah, but you just got it out of a source. If it's in his head, and then he actually articulates it, then we take a drink for Kent getting something right. Can't talk today. When can I talk? Why do you guys watch this? You guys are crazy. So we will also take a drink if Kent Hovind tells a joke that doesn't land or tells a story that didn't happen. That one is a bit of a judgment call, but also none of this actually matters. So like, who cares, right? Like how many drinks we get is just a fun arbitrary thing that we do. So yeah, I'm not too worried about the fact that I might get that wrong sometimes. And here comes the real Sharknado shark for 200 Argentinian pesos, putting us one on the board and saying, impersonating Heisenberg, you take the suit off when you take the suit off. I don't know how to impersonate Heisenberg in that situation. Oh, and then you didn't close the quotation mark, which means that from now on, you are pretending that you are quoting Heisenberg, when in fact you are not. Which means you are now lying to everyone with everything else you type, until you close off that quotation mark, which, I mean, I think you have to do it in a super chat. I don't know. I'm not sure what the rules are. So, yeah. All right. So we will also take a drink if Kent Hovind mixes up what we can know about the one specimen, Lucy, with what we can know about any wider taxon to which she belongs. We will also take, that's called ad hominid, by the way, we only get one of those. We'll also take a drink if Kent Hovind mentions that unfortunately popular political party that started over in Germany in like the 1930s. You know, should have left that behind like a century ago, but here we are. Yeah, we'll take a drink. For that, we'll also take a drink if either Bent or I can successfully predict what Kent is going to say next. We'll also take a drink if Kent cites a source, then we check the source, and not only does the source fail to support him, but it actively contradicts him. We will take a drink for Trojan source. We will also take a drink if any of you super chat, membership milestone chat, yeah, there's just those two. Anything the effect that answers in Genesis is a bag of dicks, or that includes any of the kaiju emoji, that's Mothra, Godzilla, King Ghidorah, or if your super chat includes the AIG is a bag of dicks emoji, which is an easy way to get us a drink. Also, we'll take a drink if any of you gift memberships. We will take a membership, drink per membership up until the point where we have like 30, at which point I'm just going to finish my drink and go get another drink. All right, there we go. Let's see. We will also take a drink if I manage to screw up the production. So for instance, if I fail to unmute myself, or fail to unmute Bent or Kent, or if I come back to, you know, after a break and the opening plays again, or I come back to the wrong scene, or something like that. That's Dapper's a professional. Now, that does not count if it is not something under my control. So if my computer catches fire or explodes, as I hear sometimes they do, is that accurate, Bent?
I've heard that they do. I don't know if it's true or not, but it must be true because I did hear it. So
okay, all right. Let's see. So yeah, if that happens, then that's not on me. That's not Dapper's a professional. I think that. Oh wait, no. If Godzilla or Mothra come by audibly, we'll also take a drink. But I think after that, I've covered all of them. Is that accurate?
yep, that's all of them.
Look at that. It's almost like I do this every single week and have done for years. All right, Bent, do you have anything else before we get back to Kent Hovind? Guess that's a no.
No, I don't.
Okay. All right. Now, when Kent was just when we left off, he was telling us how sometimes he gets hate mail. I don't know why we would care about the fact that he gets hate mail. He certainly deserves hate mail. I haven't sent him hate mail, though, because I frankly have better things to do with my time and money than send Kent Hovind a letter saying, you're a stinky poo-poo head. I mean, he is obviously a stinky poo-poo head, as we can all clearly smell. Wait. Okay, maybe... Never mind that. Anyway. But yeah, don't waste the postage on that. It's stupid. Don't do it. Anyway, Bent, are you ready for more Kent?
Yes, I'm ready.
All right, here we go.
The Pharisee said, "Why have you not brought him? Why didn't you bring him to us?" Yeah, the professors send their students to do the dirty work. They didn't go themselves.
Okay, so this is the context of his debates. And look, it's always a weird conversation about should academics debate pseudoscience peddlers, right? Like, should actual doctors go debate Andrew Wakefield? Should actual biologists or geologists or basically anyone with any kind of STEM degree go debate Kent Hovind? Should scientists, like, say, Maddie, should she do a climate change debate? And the answer is, I don't know the answer to that question. Because, on the one hand, it is true that that gives an air of credibility to the people who are debated, because normally, debates are between people who both have reasonably credible positions, but in this case, that's not happening at all, right? Kent does not have a credible position. Even among young Earth creationists, he doesn't have a credible position. There is very little point in taking seriously anything that he says. That's why we don't take it seriously here. That's why we have a drinking game associated with it, right? But on the other hand, if he is unchallenged, then it seems like, or it could be spun as those professors are running from him. And so what tends to happen a lot is it is in fact people sort of in the middle. People who know what they're talking about, but maybe they're students or just lay people who are interested in this, which, would cover me. Or maybe they, like students would cover like Guts of Gibbon right now, although not for long. So like, yeah, what do you do? Do you debate? I've come to the answer that I think it is better. I think most of the science friends have agreed that it's probably better to actually engage with at least the people who have something to add to the conversation. Maybe not Kent specifically, because at this point, I mean, his script has been done to death, and numerous people have figured out how to defeat his script by just forcing the debate to not be about whatever his script is on. What I did, it's what other people have done. Also, it's not great to appear alongside a convicted spouse abuser and very probable child abuse enabler. And also admitted child abuser himself. So, like, maybe not Kent specifically, but that is a real question. And I think also, Dave Farina also has come down on the yes side. We do need to counter these things actively. So, but if you disagree, if you're like, no, I don't think it's worth debating these people, then I get it. And I'm not going to tell you otherwise. I don't know. Ben, what do you think? Debate yes or debate no?
I mean, in a way, like, don't feed the trolls.
Yeah.
So, but it's up to you individually, I would say. If you feel like it's something you want to take on, then go for it.
All right. If you want to take on Bent Hovind, send me an email. And I'll try to set up a debate between you and Bent Hovind. What do you think, Bent?
Okay, that sounds good.
You want to debate whether or not ERVs are actually design elements that have a function, or if they're actual endoviral insertions, like the mainstream says?
I never want to debate anything,
Oh.
if I'm being honest.
What about, like, Metallica versus insert other band here?
Even then, I still don't like debating.
All right. Well, maybe Bent won't agree to debate you, so maybe not.
But, yeah.
And scientists today and evolutionists today will try to use the law to silence creationists.
That's true. We'll take a drink. That is true. They do. But we're going to talk about why that is. And of course, the reason is, it's not so much that they're trying to silence creationists particularly. It's that they are trying to keep non-scientifically supported and explicitly religious ideas out of science classrooms. Not even out of school broadly, just out of science classrooms, right? There is no law saying that you cannot teach the Genesis story in school. You can teach it in a comparative religion class. You can teach it in a literature class. Those are fine, because it is both of those things, right? Genesis is a piece of literature, and it is Christianity is the largest religion on earth. It should come up in a comparative religion class, right? You should probably get some of the either historically or numerically important religions out there. So you should probably touch on Buddhism, Islam, Christianity, for largely historical, not numerical reasons, probably Judaism, especially in the United States, or say Canada, which has a large number of, Jewish citizens, mostly for unfortunate reasons of fleeing persecution elsewhere, but like, it does. You might want to touch on like the religious aspects of Taoism, Confucianism, stuff like that. You might want to talk about like various, what are sometimes called animistic religions. I don't know, stuff like that. Right? Like that's the kind of thing that I think it's important for like a kid to know about. Like, what are the major world religions? So that maybe, when they come across their friend who's a Muslim at school, they don't try to offer that kid their bacon sandwich. I don't know. That might be a good idea, right? And in those contexts, yeah, teach as much Genesis as you want, as long as it's reasonably balanced with the other religions that you're teaching. But yeah, it doesn't belong in the science classroom, because not only is it not scientifically supported, it also is explicitly a religious idea, which means it's 2 strikes, right? Either one of them would probably disqualify it. But both together mean there's just no legal reason to teach it in science classrooms.
They'll try to pass a law or try to twist a law to say you can't talk about creation in schools.
It's not a law, this, as far as I know, has ever been enforced. In the United States, at least. I can't speak to other countries, because, I mean, I don't live there, so I know even less about those laws, and I'm not even a lawyer in the United States. But as far as I know, that is not a law anywhere in the United States.
Rather than just deal with the subject, if evolution is so true, prove it to us, and we'll shut up.
And no one can prove it to you for a couple of reasons. One, what do I always say about science and proof?
You can only prove a negative.
Yeah, you can't prove things. You can only really disprove things in science. You can say, it's not this. It might be this. We might have really high confidence that it's this. But it's definitely not that. That's the best you can do in science. Also, Kent Hovind had for, I think, decades. I think it was around 20 years. It might have been only a decade, or like a decade and a half. I'm not positive. But he famously had a challenge, which was, I believe, a $250,000 challenge, which most of the money was put up by someone else, because obviously Kent didn't have a $250,000. But it was $250,000 challenge, and this was like in like 80s and 90s money. And it was to show one piece of evidence for evolution. But you read the fine print on the challenge, and what Kent took, the only thing Kent would take as evidence for evolution was proof that God couldn't have done it. How would you prove that an omnipotent being couldn't have done something? Seems like he could do pretty much anything because he's omnipotent. All right, go ahead.
It's impossible to prove.
Right. Now, does that mean there is no evidence for evolution? No, of course not. There's tons of evidence. But none of it proves that God couldn't have done it. But that's not the standard we usually go with, right? We don't go with, oh, your assertion is correct until I can prove that your specific assertion isn't correct. Like, if Bent said, oh, you know what? Dapper had pork chops for lunch. I'm like, no, I didn't. I had chili. Do you think it would be reasonable for the standard that I had to provide for the chili that Bent has to have it proven to him to his satisfaction that I literally couldn't have had pork chops in any possible scenario? No. But if I showed you, like, I opened this chili can that still has, you know, like a little bit of residue of chili, and here's the bowl that I used because the dishwasher is full and it's still got the residue of chili on it. Well, guess what? That's evidence I had chili for lunch, right? And if I say, like, if there were pork chops, then there probably would be a receipt somewhere for pork chops, and, you know, there'd probably be some packaging from the pork chops that I opened, and all that. Like, and then none of that's around. All that's evidence. But is it proof it couldn't have been pork chop? No, of course not. That's not what evidence is. So it's impossible to prove it to Kent, because Kent has set up his own scenario in such a way that it can't be proven. But what it is very well evidenced, which is in fact shown by just the fact that everyone who looks into it, and who does not already have a pre-conclusion that they're going to reject it, tends to accept it. Joshua Geese for $10 says, I only became aware of Shinto after learning a little bit about the founder of Aikido, who was a practitioner. Yeah, Shinto is an interesting practice. Apparently, there is an actual official Shinto shrine in Washington State that is dedicated to the kami George Washington. So if you want to go ask the spirit of George Washington for favors, you can go to a Shinto shrine in Washington State. At least that's the last I heard. Maybe it's gone. Maybe that was all just a joke. But as far as I know, it's still going and it's true. So, yep, and that puts us at 2 out of the 20. We're 10% of the way there. You do it. Oh, and there's Josh Wees with another $10. Also, prove me wrong and we'll shut up. Challenge level impossible with a Mothra, and then we'll take a drink for that Mothra. Thank you very much. Yeah, it's basically it. It's also the same proposition as Russell's teapot, which is to say, somewhere between the orbits of Mars and Jupiter, there is a single porcelain teapot orbiting the sun. Do you believe me, Bent?
No, I do not.
Well, prove I'm wrong.
That I cannot do.
I guess you have to believe in Russell's teapot, then.
Well, maybe.
Maybe.
Maybe not.
Wait, are you saying you don't believe in Russell's teapot?
I don't think it's real.
Oh my goodness. Can't even prove it wrong, and you're just going to reject it?
That's correct.
So intellectually dishonest.
If you say so.
Bent is canceled, everybody.
No.
Yeah, if he types in the chat, hide him. I'm kidding, don't do Ben telling you 1998 for 199 says, how tight of a fit is the human suit? Can you breathe? I can breathe. But it's pretty restrictive. It's nice to get out of it. That's one of the reasons why I made the super chat goal significantly more significant. So, in case you're wondering, assuming all super chats were in US dollars, it would basically be 25% more. That's me gambling like, I think there's a chance they won't do it, and I'll get a break from this on Saturday.
Just prove it. Show us the evidence.
Okay. There are literal and figurative mountains of evidence. You don't care because you don't care about the evidence fundamentally. You're not here for evidence. Evidence has never been the important thing in your life. If it were, you wouldn't have bought into the weird nonsense lies of Gail Riplinger and her New Age Bible translations that can't even get the name of the New American Standard Bible right. And when she was called out on that, her excuse was, I didn't get it wrong, God's the dumbass. That's what he calls it. Imagine getting something wrong in your book and then saying, actually, it was God who's the dumbass.
That's not something I would do.
No. You know what? I've actually seen numerous Christian and Muslim authors go with this disclaimer at the beginning of a book, or something roughly like it, right? Everything in this book that is correct and true, I give credit to God, and for all errors, I take credit. You could go with that one, Gail. I don't know. Seems like a better way to go. At least if you're someone who is, believing in Allah/God, whatever. And I'm not getting into the debate whether or not Allah and the God of, the Christians worship are the same. If there's a real God, then I don't know how to determine that, whether that's the same God. And if there isn't, then it doesn't matter. So the answer is either I have no way to figure it out, or it doesn't matter. So in either case, we're not going to get into it.
Are you also deceived? Translated means, are you stupid? Have any of the rulers or the Pharisees believed on him? In other words, hey, all scientists believe it, therefore it must be true. John 7:40.
Not that it must be true, but it's that when people who know what they're talking about tell you something and you don't know what they're talking about, chances are they're right. It's the same reason why, you just think about it in your life, right? So, I play video games sometimes with some of the people who are fans of the channel, right? So, sometimes Kent Halstead or Ashley Loves Baha'i join me for some Space Marine. Okay? If I tell them, hey, maybe you should take Secure Stockpile on your Tactical Marine because it's a really effective team perk that allows us to recharge grenade usage without actually having to pick up grenades. And it also allows you to become much more free with which options you choose because they'll regenerate. But what if they don't know about that? I mean, it's possible I'm lying. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I, who have much more time with the game, and who am reasonably good at it, I'm just wrong about that. Or maybe I'm being a malicious liar. Chances are I'm not, though. And there's something like that in your life, right? There are people that you call up when you want answers to certain questions, right? If I want to say, hey, Bent, how the Patriots do? I'll ask Bent, probably.
They're doing pretty good. Yeah.
And when it comes time for the Super Bowl, I will ask Bent who's playing, because I won't know. That's because Bent knows more than me about this topic. And I'm sure all of you have someone that you call for certain topics. It's the same deal, man. There's nothing more than that. Sure, is it strictly logical? No. It's technically an appeal to authority. But who cares, man? You don't have time to learn everything.
9 says, but this people who knoweth not the law are cursed. What are they trying to imply by that?
That people who don't know and presumably then obey the law are under God's curse, which is a weird statement since that's not generally believed by Christians or Jews. But what cares?
You're stupid. We're smart.
I mean, that's definitely not what's in the Bible, but okay.
Can you read that into that pretty easily?
No, Kent. No, I cannot read ignorance of the law into I'm smart and you're stupid. I don't know where you would, how you would possibly get from there, one place to the other. Let's see. Falcon DJD says, there's a Shinto shrine in Hawaii that has George Washington and Abraham Lincoln. It's called the Hawaiian Daijingu Temple. You can check the Wikipedia page and website of the shrine. Hey, maybe I'll go check it out if I'm ever in Hawaii again. I don't know that I'm ever going to Hawaii again because it's stupid expensive, but maybe I will. I don't know. Tell you what, if we get Dapper Tutu the next 5 times in a row, I'll book a trip to Hawaii for vacation. Actually, don't do that. I'm not sure that I actually would follow through on that. Never mind, everybody. Would be nice to go back to Hawaii, though. I haven't been there in, geez, how long has it been?
It was really nice there.
It's coming up on 20 years, isn't it? Since we were in Hawaii?
Yeah, probably 18 years.
Yeah.
It was so nice that I would have dreams about going back. for
Really?
years. Yeah.
I didn't do that, but it was really nice. I also dropped
Yeah.
so much. I think I dropped like 12 grand in like a week.
Yeah, not me.
Well, I was trying to live it up as much as I could.
I guess.
We're smart, you're dumb. I get this attitude all the time when I do debates.
Well, okay, but Ken, that's because you are in fact demonstrably dumb. Like I frequently question your ability to just read words. You seem like you're illiterate, not just functionally illiterate. Like, you actually seem like you might have like a 5th grade reading level. You are in fact dumb. Some people are dumb. It's okay to be dumb. But what you are on top of being dumb is narcissistic and dishonest, and those are not okay. If you were just an idiot, I wouldn't care. But it's the other stuff. It's why I don't honestly cover Roger too much from Mud Fossil University. Because, like, while he is good for a little bit of a, like, what the hell is even happening right now kind of a show, he doesn't seem to be dishonest to me. As far as I can tell, other than, you know, annoying some researchers here and there, he doesn't seem to be doing anything particularly evil. And also, like, he doesn't have like a movement that's like actually gaining any like political power or causing any harm to anyone as far as I can tell. Like, if it turned out though that, like, Roger was behind, like, I don't know, some kind of anti-vax crusade that was getting kids killed, I would absolutely cover him a lot more. But he's not. That's why I barely ever cover him. Well, also why I cover Young Earth Creationists a lot more, because they are in fact deeply connected to movements that are getting people killed. For various reasons.
And I have people get up and they'll say, the evolutionist will say, well, the average person doesn't understand the complexity of this topic.
And that's true for most complex topics. The average person doesn't understand exactly how their internal combustion engine in their car works. The average person doesn't understand how the dynamics of flight help keep a plane up. Right? Like, you pick any complex topic, the average person doesn't understand it. Like, Ben, you play guitar. Does the average person know how to play guitar?
I don't think so. I think less than the average person knows how to play guitar.
Yeah. Does that mean those people are, like, dumb?
No.
No.
They're just using their brain for something else that I'm bad at.
Yeah. And does you being good at guitar make you especially smart on its own?
No, it doesn't. But it is fun.
Yeah, well, absolutely.
And I'll say to the audience, now folks, let me translate what he just said. What he just said is, you're stupid, he's smart.
Let's take a drink for that, because that's extremely dumb and extremely wrong. Okay. What it means to say the average person does not understand this aspect of science is literally just that. Most people can understand complex scientific topics if they want to. The question is, do they want to? And for most people, for most topics, the answer is just no. Right? Like, I don't know, Bent. Do you want to learn tensor calculus so that you can do predictions about stellar orbits and like galactic cores with using Einstein's relativity?
I do not, but if I wanted to, I probably could.
Exactly. That's all it means. It means you probably haven't learned enough about this particular topic. Not that you can't, not that you're dumb. The real Sharknado Shark for 100 Argentinian peso says, closing quote mark. There you go, got it. Kent, Mean Evos call me dumb. Also, Kent, I can only understand my first language to an extent. Yeah, that's another thing. He definitely did say that during his trial for fraud. Yeah, at one point, he refused to acknowledge that he understood the charges, even though it was very clear to everyone that they were very simple and easy to understand. And he was doing this in the hopes that he might be able to be found, like, incompetent, apparently. Because the thing is, if you legitimately cannot understand the charges against you, generally, you can't be convicted. But that only occurs in cases of severe mental impairment, right? We're talking, like, someone who's operating at, like, the level of a small child who can't understand right from wrong. Or someone who's currently comatose. Or something like that, right? In those cases, of course, we'll be like, well, okay, we can't really try and convict someone in a coma, or someone whose brain is severely damaged, or is otherwise greatly impaired. So when they ask you if you understand the charges, if you say no, they're going to look into that and see if that's actually a reasonable thing, right? So when Kent continued to say he did not understand the charges, eventually the judge had to ask him, like, do you speak English? So, and Kent was, yeah, to a certain extent, was his answer. Grievous for $10 says, here's to a suit with Mothra. Yes, this is a suit on top of a suit, which is double horrible. Horrible, but I would like your break. But thank you for the Mothra. All right, here we go.
You're too dumb to understand. And then I'll say, how many of you believe that that's what he just implied? And every hand goes up, you know?
Does every hand go up? Because my hand wouldn't go up. But then again, I've seen too many Kent Hovind, so maybe I'm just jaded.
Of course, that's what he implied. You know, I'm smart, you're too dumb to understand, you know, the complexity of evolution. Basically, if you disagree with me, you must be dumb.
So I gotta say, I am seeing that there are 83 people watching right now, which thank you very much, but only 26 of you have hit like, which means that unfortunately, I have to say, I like less than half of you, half as well as you deserve. So hit like unless you want to keep getting bilboed. Get bilboed.
That's what they're trying to not say. Nicodemus saith unto them, he that came to Jesus by night, being one of them, doth our law judge any man before it hear him, and knoweth not what he doeth, and knoweth what he doeth? They answered and said unto him, art thou also of Galilee? Search.
See, here's an example of Kent apparently being illiterate. He got and know what he doeth wrong twice in two different ways. Why should I trust that he's literate?
And look, for out of Galilee ariseth no prophet. Again, arguing about the wrong subject.
No, that's a pretty compelling subject, Kent. If you have good reason to say that prophets don't come from Galilee, and now you have a guy purporting to be a prophet, but he's from Galilee, that's intention. Now, I'm not going to get into the historicity of John 7:50 through 53, or the degree to which these were prophecies that people were actually believing in at the time. Like, whatever, I don't care. If we take the story at face value, which as Kent does, that's actually not the wrong topic. That's a very compelling part of the topic. You should definitely be talking about it. And I should also definitely be updating the value here on the tracker, which means let's take a drink for Dapper's a professional. All right. Here we go.
But even some of the non-believers had sense enough to listen to reason, like Nicodemus.
And Goop23 with their 10th super on a live stream. Must be super sticker, because I know Goop23 has super chatted way more than 10 times. But Goop23 has sent a super sticker that is an ice cream cone with what looks like strawberry or maybe raspberry ice cream. Both of which sound good. I could go for ice cream right now, which is not normal for me. Or maybe like sherbet. Yeah. I don't know, whatever.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
Think about the other side. Go home and think about it. If you're a scientist and you believe in evolution, that's certainly your privilege. You have the right to do that.
Thanks.
But at least think about what the other people are saying.
I mean, it's literally my job, but I guess I'm not his target audience, so that's fair. But also, like, it always cracks me up when creationists say this, because they often say it to people who do this kind of thing for a living. Like, in the past week, I think at least 3 people have left comments on Dr. Dan of Creation Myth's channel telling him that really he needs to look into genetics more. The PhD geneticist, the man who has already done more work on genetics than most people will ever do in an entire lifetime. In 3 entire lifetimes. They'll say things like, hey, have you heard of ENCODE? Remember, a creationist said that to me and Jackson on Jackson's channel once. Like, have you guys heard of ENCODE? You must not have heard of ENCODE. What? Who do you think you're talking to? So, yeah, Kent, I have looked into what the other side is saying. Also, I believe both me and my co-host here used to be young Earth creationists.
It's true.
Yeah. Here's the thing. There's a reason why how I became a young Earth creationist after being an evolutionist stories. As far as I can tell, always or nearly always start with a conversion to a particularly conservative brand of Christianity. Well, usually Protestant Christianity. And then, from there, they go to a theistic evolution position, only to find that their biblical hermeneutical principles that they apply to the scripture generally aren't super compatible with that because they are in a particularly literalist sect. And then, after finding theological tensions, but not evidentiary tensions, then they become young Earth creationists. That is the typical path from not creationist to creationist. But you know what that isn't? It isn't looking at the evidence and deciding, oh, hey, actually the evidence points towards young Earth creationism. It's having a prior emotional commitment to having young Earth creationism be a better option for you for reasons that are not evidentiary. And yeah, that's... I mean, I get why people do that, right? Because, you know, it's about your identity. When you convert to a new religion, that generally becomes a big part of your identity. Joshua Geese for $10 says, in the middle of the earth, in the land of the Shire, lives a brave little hobbit whom we all... Oh, this is the Bilbo Baggins song. With his long wooden pipe, fuzzy woolen toes, he lives in a hobbit hole, and everybody knows him. Yeah, that was, who was it? Leonard Nimoy sang that. That is a bizarre song. Have you ever heard that song, Ben?
Not that I can remember.
No. But it was Frodo. It was about Frodo. But yeah, sometime you should look up Leonard Nimoy singing about Frodo from Lord of the Rings. It is weird, man. If any of my mods actually have a link to that. Jillian Wren says, wow, Dapper took way longer to recognize that than I did. Hey, sorry. It also took me an embarrassingly long time to come up with the name Leonard Nimoy. For some reason, that name was just, like, refusing to enter my consciousness. Maybe it was about Bilbo. I thought it was about Frodo. I don't know. It is about Bilbo? Oh, so it was about Bilbo. I was right the first time when I said Bilbo. Get it, everybody. I got it wrong. It was Bilbo, not Frodo. Although I did say Bilbo first, but then I switched to Frodo because I thought I was wrong.
Think about the creationist view. Don't just discount it. There is probably more peer pressure in the scientific community than there is in the average 5th grade class. You know, 5th grade.
No, Kent. Scientists are vicious to each other. They are trying to disprove each other all the time. In fact, the easiest way to become famous, and in some cases rich as a scientist, is to overturn the consensus. You don't know the names of the scientists, generally, who just worked within the consensus and didn't change anything. You know the names of people who overthrew the consensus, like Einstein. Why do you know his name? Oh, because he took the Newtonian mechanical idea of the world with space and time as just background, like, kind of like the background grid of the universe on which events take place that are not dynamic but simply exist in which things can occur. And he turned all of that on its head. He was even a big part of the quantum revolution, which took the idea of determinism and tossed it in the bucket. He didn't like that, and yet he was a big part of that. That's why we know his name. We know the name of people like Niels Bohr because they took previous ideas about how an atom worked and were able to get rid of them and say, nope, that's not actually accurate. Here's a better model that better explains the actual experiments we get. That's the reason that we do that. Charles Darwin isn't famous because he was working within the non-evolutionary framework that had been prominent up until that point, things like progressive creation and whatnot. He's famous because he was able to take those ideas, which were dominant, and toss them out and say, nope, this is a better explanation. Was it a perfect explanation? No, not even close. Do we know that some of the things he said were wrong? Yeah. But he still helped overturn a paradigm. That's how you get somewhere in science. You find something you can disprove that people already accept. Grungavaldi Gurnison, who's been a member for 21 months and is at the Amniote level, says, proof God exists and he has forsaken me. Kent's Facebook page showed up in my feed. So I don't even know if my Facebook account still exists, because I don't know how to log into it, and I deleted the app from my phone. But I will say, back when I still was actually checking it every once in a while, Kent Hovind would come up as a suggested friend. I'm like, oh, hey, you have... And it was like 3 mutual friends with Kent Hovind. And I was like, oh. How do I have 3 mutuals with Kent Hovind?
Gross.
Yeah. Turns out at least one of them was, in fact, pretty gross.
Graders, they got to wear the right clothes because of their friends, or 7th graders, They're scared of peer pressure. What are my friends going to think? Scientists are much worse at that.
I mean, I guess they are much worse in the sense of what will my friends think, but that's usually if I'm the one who gets proven wrong, because they're all out to prove you wrong. So there's that, I suppose.
Peer pressure in the scientific community. We need somebody with some backbone to say, I don't care what anybody says, I'm doing what's right. Here's a list of some of the major scientists of the past who were creationists.
All right. Hey, Bent.
Yeah.
Out of curiosity, do you know what the first 2 digits of the date of the publication of The Origin of Species are?
I think it's 1-8.
1-8. Yeah, it is 1-8.
Yeah.
Is that higher or lower than all of the numbers here?
It's higher than all of these.
Okay, so taking a drink. This is incredibly dumb. A bunch of people who lived before the publication of The Origin of Species didn't accept natural selection and evolution by natural selection.
It's crazy.
Okay, sure. I mean, it's not wrong. It's just... It's like saying, oh, hey, you know what? Computer coding is bullshit. You know how I know? Because Blaise Pascal didn't know how to code computers. So you shouldn't either. It's stupid. Yeah, I'm sure Blaise Pascal didn't know how to code. Because it wasn't a thing. And also, a lot of these are just not things where you would come up with evolution, even if you were doing it today, right? Like, you think that you need to know about creation and evolution to make a barometer? No, probably not.
No.
What about mathematics? No, probably not.
Probably.
Yeah. Botany? Maybe. Medical doctor? Nah. Also, I love how he says these are a bunch of scientists, and then one of them is actually an inventor, according to Kent. And one of them doesn't even have anything that he's associated with. John Wilkins. What did he do? Kent doesn't know. I mean, I don't know either, because I don't remember that name. You recognize that name?
I don't know.
Okay.
No idea.
Yeah. But yeah, it's not surprising that some guy who died in 1672 didn't know a whole lot about evolution.
Nearly every branch of science in the world was started by somebody who believed in creation.
Yeah, that's because most of them were started before the 1800s, Kent. Most of them in the 1700s. Some of them in the 1600s. That's why. It's like saying almost every branch of science was created before black holes were first photographed. Yup. That's true, I guess. I don't know what you want to do with that information. For 100 Argentinian pesos, the real Sharknado Shark says, considering how many scientists were Muslim, maybe we should just accept Allah is the only God and Muhammad is his prophet. Well, if we want to base it by which religion gets the most Nobel Prize compared to how many people are in the religion, then I'm pretty sure that makes Judaism the one true religion, because Jewish scientists are hugely overrepresented in the Nobel Prize, which I think is probably because, at least in Europe and the United States and Canada, Jewish culture heavily emphasizes getting a good education, which is why a lot of them end up in STEM fields. It's almost like it is a good idea to have a culture that values study and intellectualism, working hard at those things. Which, yeah, Judaism generally does. Let's see. Joshua Geese for $10 says, we need a TV show where the main character is Blaise Pascal, Blaze, who solves problems with algorithms, and also by token, obviously. That last part wasn't the original Super Cat. But I would appreciate a show about a guy named Blaise Pascal, who's like a famous physicist, but who's also just always high as a kite. What do you think, Ben?
I would watch that.
All right, for $2, Goopdo3 says John Wilkins shot Lincoln, I think. Joke. Let's say that's not it. That's a good one, though. Yeah, he invented the presidential assassination. Wait, Lincoln wasn't the first president to be assassinated, though, was he? Wasn't he the second? I thought he was the second.
You're asking me, I'm not sure.
Ben, you're supposed to know all the trivia stuff.
I don't know this one.
Ah. Did you even study history in school? Says the guy with a history degree.
No, but I know that Lincoln was the 16th president, so that's 15 before him. That's plenty of opportunity for assassination.
It's true. Shipfish, who's been a member for 45 months, says, sup, happy incipient new year. Happy incipient new year to you too. And also, Merry, I believe now we're on the 7th day of Christmas, now that the sun is set here. So, Merry Christmas, Bent.
Merry Christmas, Dapper Dinosaur.
Thank you. And by the way, this is the 7th day of Gregorian Christmas. Julian calendar Christmas hasn't even started. And before you ask, yes, there are indeed people who celebrate Christmas according to the Julian calendar. And yes, I will be wishing them a Merry Christmas during Julian Christmas. So get ready for that.
Francis Bacon invented our scientific method. He was a creationist.
Okay.
Johann Kepler, the great astronomer, was a creationist. I won't read them all to you, but there are thousands and thousands.
I was about to be worried that he was just going to go down the line. It's like, yeah, people who were born and died before Darwin didn't accept Darwinian evolution. Shocker.
Thousands of people who are creationists. Cotton Mather, the physician, was a creationist. John
Who remembers Cotton Mather for being a physician? I'm taking a drink for Cotton Mather, the physician, as opposed to Cotton Mather, the folklorist, the thing he's actually known for. I do also like that we get, that Isaac Newton was probably a heretic for his anti-Trinitarian views. Okay, cool.
Woodward, paleontology. Now, people began to use the research of these guys and twist it into...
I love how we're 3 pages deep, and we're still only at 1822, because these are roughly chronological for, the death date.
Evolution. And some of these guys were old Earth compromisers.
Oh, no. But, by the way, when he says that, that was basically the consensus view by the time, Hutton and Lyell had finished, their geological work, and that had been largely taken up by the scientific community. Yeah, old Earth was in. It was pretty obvious from both geology and paleontology that there had to have been at least hundreds of thousands, if not millions of years. And people weren't sure exactly how long, because they didn't have any way to directly date strata, but they could tell that certain strata had to record at least tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, or even millions of years worth of deposition. Because we knew by then about things like maximum deposition rate of certain kinds of sediment. Because we'd done experiments, we'd actually gone around and looked around the world. We correlated various geographic strata. All that stuff had happened already. So yeah, old Earth creationism was basically just the default. It wasn't really until Ellen G. White, who is the prophetess of Seventh-day Adventism, really started to emphasize an overly literal interpretation of Genesis 1 and 2, that the idea of young Earth creationism became popular in Christianity in the United States. And that's where it started, really, was in the United States, right? So that's also why many of the most prominent young Earth creationist schools are Seventh-day Adventist schools. And a lot of non-Seventh-day Adventists Christians who are young Earth creationists don't like to emphasize that fact because they generally consider Ellen G. White to have been a false prophetess. I mean, okay, I'm not going to weigh in. I don't care. But they did like her hardline conservative, as they saw it, view on that. Because during this time when young Earth creationism is sort of spreading into general Protestant Christianity, especially in the United States and in Canada, which is why it's primarily an Anglosphere phenomenon in Christianity, there was a whole lot of concern over things like what they considered to be liberals coming into the churches and teaching things like that there were contradictions between the Gospels, or that the Exodus was an ahistorical account, or things like that. Basically, they were worried that scholarship was becoming too important, is what that comes down to. So, yeah, they decided to take even harder line stances. In fact, if you look at the people who were the first self-described fundamentalist Christians, the people who invented the term fundamentalism, basically none of them were young Earth creationists. They were all anti-evolutionists, but they were old Earth creationists because they weren't so dumb as to ignore all of the evidence of the great age of the Earth, which is overwhelming. Wait, it's one of those things where it's like, maybe reject as little science as you need to. I don't know. Arrow Dodger for $4.99 says, Kent is the kind of guy who eats sushi with a fork. Wait, you are? What a weird thing to say. All right, but yeah, he does strike me as the kind of guy who eats sushi with a fork. Although I will say, I eat sushi with chopsticks, which is also inappropriate, but just, I don't want to touch raw fish. I don't know. Not with my hands. Feels weird. So, like, I get it. It's supposed to be finger food. Look, if I'm in a fancy sushi place in Japan, then sure, I'll eat the sushi with my hands after thoroughly washing both before and after. But I usually eat sushi in either restaurants in America or just at home, and I'm using chopsticks for it. Sorry.
They believed there was a creator, but thought maybe the Earth was millions of years old. Especially those in the early 1800s, when it really became a lot of peer pressure to teach the Earth was old and try.
I'm just taking it for peer pressure, as if the overwhelming and actual literal mountains weren't the evidence that was compelling people to believe this. My goodness.
Try to fit it into the Bible with the gap theory and the day-age theory. That started way before Darwin, early 1800s. Carolus Linnaeus, who invented our classification system that we still use today, you know, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. He was a creationist.
Yep, again, born and died before Darwin ever published a damn thing. Let's see. Right-handed says, what does sushi have to do with raw fish? Raw fish is sashimi. Yeah, here's the thing. I'm speaking English. If you catch me on a stream where I decide to speak Japanese, I will be making that distinction in Japanese when I use Japanese. In English, sushi is a genre of Japanese-inspired and sometimes actually Japanese food that involves raw fish, usually, although sometimes other toppings, but usually by default it's raw fish on top of sour rice with accoutrement like wasabi, or, well, horseradish paste that's been dyed to green to look like wasabi, soy sauce, and pickled ginger. And yeah, that is how I'm using it, because I am speaking English. The Real Sharknado Shark for 100 Argentinian pesos says, just a reminder that the Seventh-day Adventist Church republishes White's book with less content each time, as more of what she says is becoming either obviously false or unacceptable. Also, don't shower on Saturdays. I don't think I'm going to decide when to shower based on the Real Sharknado Shark's super chats, but I appreciate the unsolicited advice. But also, is that something that Ellen G. White said? Is that a thing? Let's see. Goop23 says, I think most Japanese people eat sushi with chopsticks nowadays. Really? All right. Well, then I feel less bad about it. Not that I felt very bad about it in the first place.
All through history, you can see these people were creationists. John Dalton.
Oh, Charles Bell, we're finally getting to someone who died within like a few decades of the publication of the Origin of Species. Jeez. Also, how does he decide who gets the yellow name, like Georges Cuvier? Why doesn't Timothy Dwight get one? Because he's just an educator? Weird. DJ Sapsan, who's been a member for 19 months, says, hello from Ukraine. Happy 2026 soon. Religion is... You know, I don't necessarily agree. I don't think you can paint something as broad as religion as with any particular broad, right? Like, when was the last time the Yazidis caused you problems? Or anyone problems, for that matter? I can't remember. When was the last time a Jain was caught using their Jainism as an excuse to be a dick? I mean, these are the people who try to use filters on their drinking water lest they drink like tardigrades. So yeah, I don't think we can say that. Renee Reborn for $5 says, one of my greatest agonies is that I'm allergic to horseradish and America so rarely had real wasabi. Oh yeah, that sucks. Man. Yeah, the thing is, wasabi is expensive. Like real wasabi. Like it was a long time ago, but I looked into like what would it take to like actually get some. Not worth it. And then I did have some when I was in Japan, and I was like, this is not different enough from horseradish for me to care. And Cotton Candy Wolf says, I mean, even without the raw fish, sticky rice, sticky fingies, I say. That's true. That's why if I eat, like Doritos or Cheetos or something, which I don't do often, but when I do, I eat them with chopsticks.
George Cuvier, he was a compromiser, but...
Cuvier, but whatever.
Many of these folks, they believe, look, there's had to be a creator. And they started whole branches of science that are still in existence today.
Cool.
A lot of geologists were...
I also want to point out that in The Origin of Species, Darwin mentions the creator several times, and it does seem like by the time he published it, he was in fact still a believing and professing Christian. Although not the kind Kent would approve of, because just like Isaac Newton, whom Kent complained about, Charles Darwin was never a Trinitarian as far as we can tell.
Creationists. Samuel Morse invented the telegraph and the Morse code invented the Morse code anyway. Charles Babbage, operations research, computer science, wouldn't have computers if it weren't.
Lieutenant Math Navigator for $5 says, Ken Hovind is the kind of band that would answer the Bridgekeeper's question 3, that A is the capital of Assyria. Well, okay, so would the Bridgekeeper toss him off the bridge for answering A? Because, I mean, there is only one capital letter in Assyria, and it is an A. So, like, I don't know. I think what you need to do is you need to script that whole thing, and then tell everyone how the scripting goes. What happens. And then turn that into an animated little video. That's what you should do. All right, we are at about the halfway mark, so we're going to take a quick break. I'm going to refresh my drink. Take this time to get up, use the bathroom, grab yourself a drink or a snack or whatever. We will be back in just a few minutes. And in the meantime, you can listen to the musical stylings of one Bent Hovind, who is, that's you.
That's me.
Yeah. All right, we'll be right back, everybody. Well, I mean, I don't know, like a few minutes, whatever. You know the deal. You've been here before. We are back. Welcome back, Bent.
Thank you. It's good to be back.
While we were gone, Aiden Polemoeo, I hope, says, on religions, pagans, my people, are like a box of ferrets on crack, but mostly in a fun way, with a Mothra. Well, there you go. Look, I have met and enjoyed the company of people from many different religions, including different versions of Christianity, Islam, Judaism, various pagan groups, Buddhism, lots of great people out there of lots of different religious traditions. So I am a pretty confirmed religious pluralist overall. Obviously, I think there are certain versions of certain religions that are somewhat destructive or very destructive, like Kent's. But I'm a big fan of letting people enjoy the traditions that they want to enjoy, provided that they're not hurting people. And I don't really care if they're wrong about that God exists or whatever. And if there's a God, and he's a just God, I think that something close to Christian universalism would probably be the idea, which was basically be like, basically, if there's an afterlife, everyone can have a good time in that afterlife. Maybe not everyone will, but even the people who didn't do the right things will have some kind of ability to get that fixed. Which I guess maybe also makes me kind of like say that I would like what the Mormons say, which is like, oh yeah, you weren't a Mormon while you were alive, it's fine. Someone else will get baptized for you, then you can become one. And you know what? If I die and I find myself in spirit prison, and the Mormon missionaries come knocking, and they're like, oh, brother so-and-so was baptized in your name, would you like to accept the gospel of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ as revealed by Joseph Smith? I will say yes. Right? Why would you not? Anyway, Lieutenant Matt the Navigator has just gifted 5 Dapper Dinosaur memberships, so thank you so much for that, and we will take a drink, 5 drinks for that. Then we'll do the quick post-break thing, and then, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. All right. So, I don't want to go on too much about it, but yeah, this channel is almost entirely supported directly through super chats, memberships, the Patreon, and all that stuff. So if you want early access to videos, if you want to have access to my super secret Discord server just for supporters, then check out the Patreon in the description. Maybe join the channel. There's a join button. Yeah, do those things if you like. And if you don't want to, or you can't afford to, importantly, I don't want money you can't afford, then don't worry about it. And everyone should like and share the stream, because that also really matters. So, all right, let's get back to some Kent.
For the research of guys like this that were creationists. Louis Agassiz did a lot.
Louis Agassiz, but I'm taking a drink. Kent is really starting to hurt my head with just his pronunciations of some of these names. Kent, French is a language that exists. I don't know. You could learn a little bit of it. Just enough to know how to pronounce a few names, I guess, maybe. Just a tiny little bit. It bugs me that I, as a person who has never studied Spanish, know more Spanish than Kent seems to know English. Which is an exaggeration, to be fair, but like, it bugs me. Sorry. Stephen G. Clinard, I'm gonna go with that, says, think Telestial. Yes, I'll get myself into the Telestial Kingdom. Which, I mean, better than the Terrestrial Kingdom, right? Not as good as Celestial. That's why it's like a portmanteau of both the words. Because, yeah, that's a word that Joseph Smith made up as Telestial. That's not like a previously existing word. Normandy Foxtrot says, I mean, you listen to me mispronounce every name every week. Well, ideally it would be every week. It turns out not to be, but that's okay. So, here we go.
A lot of study on glaciers. was a creationist. Today,
Oh, hey, we're finally getting to a few people who were born way before Darwin published his book, but who died, at least with John Murray, afterwards. So we got one guy who could have, and he's a publisher, which is not a kind of scientist. Jesus. What? But at least he died having been able to read on the origins of species. Josh McGee says Andre Agassi. Thank you very much for clearly you're into Andre Agassi for $10. Thank you very much. Lieutenant Math Navigator for $5 says, I think my grasp of Reformed Egyptian is nearly exceeds Ken's command of English. Have you ever listened to the pronunciation guides that Joseph Smith gave for Egyptian?
No, I have not.
It is comically bad.
Really?
It's
I'm not surprised.
It's just a bunch of nonsense syllables that, unsurprisingly, follow English phonotactic rules and don't use any sounds that don't occur in English. Because, despite the fact that Joseph Smith was apparently someone who studied Hebrew late in his life and was, according to his instructor, who was apparently a Jewish Hebrew teacher, did pretty well. It is clear that for the vast majority of his life, he was unacquainted with any language other than English. His sketch of Egyptian grammar and his pronunciation guides for the various symbols that he wrote down are just hilariously dumb. Stephen G. Clinard says, better for $2, better than Outer Darkness. Yeah, that's true. I mean, I have that going for me. No Outer Darkness for me. What about you, Bent? Are you going to be damned to Outer Darkness if the Mormons are right?
I don't think so, but I don't know.
Well, generally, the only way to be condemned to outer darkness is to either have been an unrepentant ally of like Satan in his rebellion or something, or to have learned and accepted the gospel of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints according to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and then have rejected it after having accepted it.
Yeah, I don't think I fall into that category. Either
All right.
one.
Well then, if the Mormons are right, you're good.
Yes.
I mean, you won't get your own whole planet to rule over with your harem of wives.
That's okay. I've played KSP. I've had my own planet before.
There you go. I played Sim Earth.
I did too, actually.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, that was fun.
We need to make a new Sim Earth. Sim Earth 2. Come on, Araxis. Let's get on it.
Stephen Gould, the Marxist communist professor at Harvard University.
The only person I've ever heard to call Stephen Jay Gould a Marxist communist is Kent. And I have no idea if it's true, because, like, why would I care? But it's just weird that that's always how he refers to him. Like, there haven't been other Marxists who have been in academia, because I'll tell you what, there have been plenty of them. It's weird to me. If you want to find something that would be unusual to find in academia in terms of, like, left-wing politics, I don't know, maybe talk about tankies. You don't get too many tankies in academia compared to just, like, general Marxists. And do you know what tankies are?
Nope.
Those are people who are, like, unironic, yeah, Stalin was great. It's like, oh. No. Right-handed Sid says, Sim Ant, yeah, Sim Ant was great, man. I love driving the family out of the house. That was so great. Sim Ant was a wonderful game. We should get a new Sim Ant.
Works in the Agassi Museum, named after a creationist.
And what, Ken? It's like when someone says, like, I can't believe you're not a Christian. Your name is Christopher. It literally means Christ bearer. So what? Wait. I've actually heard people say that to people. Like, you've got a Christian name. You're not a Christian? Like, and?
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, that's the name someone else gave it. Who cares? And also, Agassi died before The Origin of Species was published. So, no surprise there.
see some, boy, I could stop and talk about many of these guys, you know, James Joule, thermodynamics. The Joule is named after him. You know,
That is pretty cool. You know you've made it in physics when you get a unit named after you. Not too many people can say that. Like Newton, Coulomb, Joule, ohm. Not kilometer. That wasn't named after anybody. Nor was the meter. Naramda puts for $2 says, I can't believe normative determinism is wrong. Yeah, you could believe it. I don't know. But yeah, I it's not the etymological fallacy, but it feels like thematically similar, right? Like can you believe the irony of Stephen Jay Gould, the famous evolutionary biologist working in a school or a museum named after someone who didn't believe in evolution, who died before evolution was ever proposed in the modern form? Yeah, I can. Yep. Just like I can even believe that the director of the Kennedy Center in the United States is a Republican, even though he's the head of a center named after a Democrat president.
a unit of energy, named after James Joule. Louis Pasteur, pasteurized milk. Any milk carton, I'll remind you of creation. If you see pasteurized down there from Louis Pasteur's name.
Oh, this is from before creationists started getting big into raw milk. So Pasteur was still like the good guy, right? Because for some reason, all of the weird health nut stuff that's actually super bad for you has been just like sucked up by like creationists and broadly like the weird right-wing parts of the country. When it used to be that stuff was mostly like the left-wing nonsense. Usually you get like weirdo hippies and communists who were like, oh yeah, we're going to drink raw milk and eat granola and not get vaccinated. And we're going to sit in our drum circle. And now it's like, you got like trad wife Nazi content talking about raw milk. I'm like, what the hell happened? How did the right wing adopt all the crazy nonsense that used to be like left wing pseudoscience, and then just now it's become associated with the right? I don't get it. And it seems to have happened fairly recently, from what I can tell. But yeah, I'll bet you today, if Kent Hovind were talking about milk, he would be advocating for raw milk. I don't know, because I don't still watch his stuff. But if any of you do, let me know. Does Kent Hovind advocate for raw milk consumption? Lieutenant Math Navigator for $5 says, can you believe that Kent Hovind isn't from southeastern England? Right? Even though he's named Kent? What an idiot. Although, actually, I did see someone on, I think, Craig's channel today, who, when asked, or someone talked about, like, what one could see in the sky from Britain. He's like, what do we care about Britain? I'm from Brighton. And it's like, yeah, but that's in Britain. Like, no, it's in Sussex. I'm like, okay, sure, why not? Arrow Dodger for $4.99 says, with very strange characters, English, mother effer, do you speak it? Only to some degree is the answer to that. Like Kent.
James Clerk Maxwell, electrodynamics, statistical thermodynamics. All through history, these folks were creationists.
I actually don't know if all these people were creationists as he's going through, because I don't know about most of them. Because here's the thing, when you do scientific work or you invent something, no one asks you if you're a creationist. No one really cares that much, as long as you do good work. Because sometimes people will say, well, creationists can't do science. That's not actually true. Although, a lot of the times the people saying that are actually just creationists strawmanning what actual, normal people say. But it's definitely not true that creationists can't do science. Creationists can do science all the time. They can't do science relevant to the things that they reject in science and then do them honestly and get them published, because they're going to get them wrong. But, like, you can be a creationist and do all sorts of cool math stuff, or, I don't know, spectroscopy or whatever, right? Hydrodynamics. What was it? Henry Morris, I think. Or it might have been Dwayne Teagish, I'm not sure. But one of them was a hydrologist who wrote a widely well-regarded hydrology textbook. He was a scientist. Guess what? Hydrology is something you can do and be a creation. Turns out it's weird that he got a lot of stuff about hydrology wrong when he talked about erosion. But, hey, before that, he still got a lot of stuff right. Made a good textbook, apparently.
I'll just page down real slowly and let you look at some of the names. Andros Fleming, Wilder Smith had 3 doctoral degrees in sciences, was a creation science pioneer, and
I am very suspect of Werner von Braun being an anti-evolutionist. That's actually to the point where, like, I'm gonna check on that. That's something I think deserves some investigation, because that seems unlikely to me. My unfinished sock, who's been a member for 8 months and is at the eminent level, says, "Don't be an hour late to stream. Like and share the stream instead." Okay, so let's see. Werner von... Oh, I put a B in there for some reason. Von Braun evolution. Alright, yeah. Looks like he did in fact reject evolution from what I can see. Hey, alright. I wasn't very sure. I thought it was wrong, but apparently, there you go. I'll take a drink. There's actually one you found. Although calling him a space scientist is weird when he was a rocket scientist specifically, but whatever. Jillian Wren says there's an urban legend that he converted to fundamentalist Christianity. I mean, I know he was a Christian by the end of his life. That actually seems pretty well established. Apparently, he complained about evolution, so I wouldn't be surprised if that rumor were more or less accurate. And I do believe that his becoming a sincere Christian was something that happened relatively late in life. I believe after the war, but I'm not positive. I'm not a Werner von Braun like biographer or anything. Yes, he was also a war criminal. That's true. I like how one of them, Arthur E. Wilder Smith, isn't credited with actually founding any particular part of science. It's just has 3 science doctorates and a creation science pioneer. What does that mean? I don't know. Who knows?
spoke prolifically on creation, just died here recently. So many people today are scientists and are creationists. Many people are actually afraid to let people know they're creationists for fear they'll lose their job.
Yeah, just like many people who are flat earthers don't like to let people know that they're flat earthers because they're worried about their jobs. As they should be. Like, I need you to think about this if you're a creationist and you're watching, right? For most people, saying that you reject evolution and that you think the Earth is 6,000 years old is on the same level of absurdity as saying you think the Earth is flat. And I think most people intuitively would feel uncomfortable letting someone who thinks the Earth is flat do anything important for them, right? I wouldn't want someone that stupid cooking my food. I wouldn't want someone that stupid cleaning my house. I wouldn't want someone that stupid hemming my garments. It's hard for me to think of a job that I would want someone to do for me for money that I would trust someone stupid enough to be a flat earther. For most people, young earth creationism isn't quite as bad, although I think that if you dig down into it, it ultimately is. But it still remains the case that if you're that crazy to think that that's a viable option, a lot of jobs you really shouldn't be doing, or that you would be better off not doing. So yeah, I actually think more people should be fired from academia for being young earth creationists than are. In fact, I think that schools that teach young earth creationism should have their ability to issue STEM degrees revoked. I don't think they need to have all their degree accreditation revoked, right? Like if you want to get a, I don't know, like an English major, you want to go get an English degree from Loma Linda University, whatever, fine, go have fun with that. But like a geology degree from Loma Linda University, absolutely not. If I were like an HR guy and I was looking through candidates for like a job that required a geology degree, if I saw anyone who came from a creationist university, that would be an automatic reject for me. I don't know. I know a lot of people disagree with me. I know specifically John Swamidas definitely disagrees with me. He has a whole article about how he does not think the creationist schools should have any of their accreditation pulled. And I'm not as extreme as some other people. I know some people who are like, no, any school that teaches young earth creationism shouldn't be accredited by anything, to any degree for anything. I don't know, maybe I'm just a fence sitter, but I think they should have their ability to give legitimate STEM degrees revoked. Lieutenant Matt the Navigator for $5 says, a creation science pioneer was a creationist? Next you'll tell me that David Irving was an anti-Semite. Yeah. It do be like that. I don't know, Ben, what do you think? Am I being too harsh on the creation schools?
I don't think so.
All right.
I think you're being fair.
Thanks. Are you just saying that because you don't want me to get angry at you?
No, I really believe it.
Well, now it sounds like you don't believe.
Oh, really? I do.
Because it does happen. Okay, there is a discrimination.
Yeah. Here's the thing, right? Discrimination is not on its own a bad thing. It's a bad thing when it's irrelevant to discrimination, right? Like, it's bad when you're discriminating against, say, I don't know, people on the basis of skin color for who gets housing. That's bad. But if you discriminate on who can get what housing on the basis of, oh, I don't know, being on the sex offender registry, that's not bad. If that's you, you shouldn't be able to live literally anywhere. It should be harder for you to get housing. You should have to get housing certain distances away from schools or whatever. Yeah. It's not good to discriminate in terms of, say, gender identity when you're hiring for someone to find you oil via geology. That's a bad idea. I don't know why I have this in my hand. That's a craft knife. That's a bad idea. You shouldn't discriminate on that basis. But you should discriminate on the basis of being bad at geology because you believe crazy nonsense pseudoscience geology. It's a bad idea to discriminate who should be allowed to become an airline pilot based on, I don't know, country of origin. Generally speaking, not a good idea. It shouldn't be looked down upon to discriminate on who gets to be a pilot based on whether or not they think the Earth is flat. That's a good idea. You should discriminate based on that. So yeah, discrimination, simply not a dirty word. It's often a dirty word in certain contexts, but it doesn't have to be. Anyway, Grievous for $10 says, I was fired for being a creationist. Looks inside, editorial fraud, Mothra. Getting a lot of mileage out of this joke. Well, it's true. Actually, yeah. A lot of the times the creationists are like, look, this person was fired for being a creationist. It was actually for blatantly unethical things like, I don't know, sexually harassing students or publishing a paper in a peer-reviewed journal that hadn't been peer-reviewed. Take a drink from Mothra. Gringavaldi Garnison says, bad news, Dap. I've worked with machinists who were flirts. I would not trust them at all. I would have someone constantly looking over their shoulder if I wasn't able to fire them. The Real Shark Nano Shark for 100 Argentinian pesos says, we don't believe this, but I'm going to teach you what the other side thinks. The strategy of a Seventh-day Adventist University professor. I mean, I actually don't know if that's what they do. I assume some of them must. So yeah. I'm not sure. I do know that people do get like some education about actual science. I don't know exactly what goes on there, but I wouldn't trust anyone from Loma Linda to do any paleontology or biology or geology for me. Not a shot.
Against creationists. Okay, next question. What about separation of church and state? Well, there's no such phrase in the Constitution.
Doesn't matter, Kent. It's been a part of constitutional law for just like almost the entire time. The way the government works, the way the law works is not, well, this phrase isn't in the Constitution, therefore it doesn't work. That's never been how it works. Stare decisis isn't in the Constitution, which is let the ruling stand, which was, until recently, the principle by which most courts operated, which was to say, if there had previously been a ruling on this, then unless there is an extremely compelling reason to think that ruling was an error, we let the ruling stand. Not in the Constitution. Yet has been, historically, a core part of constitutional law in the United States. The Constitution is not literal. The constitutional law is not limited to just what is in the literal text, because there are implications of what's in the text that are important and that have the force of law, even though they're not literally in the text. But of course, Kent is going to treat the Constitution the way he treats the Bible.
There's no such thing as separation
Oh, hey, Jillian Brent got a bingo. Congratulations.
of church and state. That sentence was used by Thomas Jefferson in a letter written to Pastor Danbury.
That was when it was first used. Stephen G. Clinner for $5 says, I think you mean do. Yeah, do you know that bicameral legislature is not in the Constitution? Yeah, also not in the Constitution. But you know what is? A definition for two different houses of the legislature, which makes it bicameral. So who cares if it's not literally in there with those words? The United States still has a bicameral legislature. At least for now.
A Baptist in Dayton, Connecticut in 1802. Jefferson said, "The First Amendment has erected a wall of separation between church and state." By the way?
Yep. And that has been tested in courts numerous times and found to be correct, even in fairly recent times. Because what the United States Constitution says is that Congress shall make no law concerning the establishment of a religion. And that seems pretty narrow. But what it has been interpreted as well as what it seems like it was largely intended to do, was to say that the government was not going to get involved with church affairs. This was a big deal because most countries at the time the Constitution was drafted had official state churches that had taxes that went to them. They were tax funded. If you went to these churches, you generally didn't have to tithe a bunch because you were paying your taxes, and part of that went to that church. But even if you didn't go to that church, some of your tax money was going to that church. And further, the governments would sometimes issue laws enforcing either membership or orthodoxy within that church or whatever. And that was one of the reasons that many of the original colonists that formed what would later become the United States went to the United States, was to escape from countries that had established churches that they didn't agree with. Now, a lot of them created established churches in the colonies that they showed up in, which, yeah, they didn't really so much disagree with the idea of established religions so much as they wanted theirs to be the establishment. Which, yeah, kind of hypocritical, but whatever. But the concern was that if the federal government decided that this was the established church of the federal government, but that wasn't the church that, say, people in Massachusetts or Connecticut or Rhode Island or Virginia wanted, that they would then be oppressed by this new union. Because remember, the whole reason that the Constitution was being drafted was because the earlier Articles of Confederation had basically failed to form a working government because they were too weak. But they were so weak because all the states thought of themselves as independent sovereigns. That's why we have all this stuff about state law versus federal law, and who can the president pardon? And the answer is no one who's can't pardon anyone for state crimes, only federal crimes, whereas governors can generally pardon for state crimes, but not federal. That's that whole milieu, right? So the people of the states, including the governments of the states, were concerned about ceding too much power. And that's a big part of it. And that's why the interpretation from the earliest days was that the government is going to stay out of religious questions. It's not going to favor one group or the other. So we have to treat all religious positions, including a lack of religious affiliation, as equally as possible. It's one of the reasons why the U.S. military was forced to accept that atheist chaplains, because they had to treat the lack of religious affiliation as seriously as any other religious affiliation. Stephen G. Clinner for $5 says, "Did you know that the phrase system of checks and balances isn't in..." Oh, shit. Well, yeah. Well, look, the system of checks and balances has been on life support for decades, and I think it's in its death throes right now. You ever hear that rattle in someone's breath when they have pneumonia?
Oh, yeah.
I feel like that's how the Constitution would sound right now if you could hear the Constitution.
Wallbuilders.com, David Barton has a great ministry. He said that wall is a one-dimensional wall. It keeps government from running the church, but it makes sure that Christian principles will always stay in government.
No, it doesn't, because there are virtually no particularly Christian principles in the Constitution. Like representation by an elected legislature, that's not a Christian principle. You can't find that anywhere in the Bible. The idea of a limit on executive power, the Bible certainly doesn't have that. The kings portrayed in the Bible pretty much universally ruled as absolute monarchs. Let's see. I have trouble thinking of a single thing that was predominantly a Christian idea that is in the Constitution. And by predominantly, I mean that Christians came up with, and that has been a significant part of Christianity. I can't think of one. I don't know, Bent, can you?
No, not off the top of my head.
Yeah. Nothing in the Constitution in any way enforces anything about Christianity or Christian principles. Now, there are a lot of principles that are in the Constitution that Christians have now adopted, especially in the United States, but that's going from the Constitution to Christianity, not from Christianity to the Constitution. The primary ideologies behind the Constitution were things like the Scottish Enlightenment, looking back at classical principles from places like, classical Greece, ancient Rome, things like that. That's where these ideas come from. They do not trace back to Christianity in any particular. Now, it's true that Christians throughout history have had various relationships with these ideas because they were floating around in Western culture to various degrees. But they certainly were not the invention of Christianity. They're certainly not in the Bible in any.
The same day they voted in the amendments to the Constitution, the 10 amendments.
Okay, so Bill of Rights, got it.
Including the First Amendment. Same day, they voted to give $500 to a Catholic priest to help the Indians in St. Louis.
Okay. Did they do that so that he could go proselytize? Or did they do it because that was something they voted to do as an act of charity, unrelated to the fact that he was a Catholic priest? Because here's the thing, right? You can be a Catholic priest and do like a job for the government and get paid, or have a charity that you take money from the federal government for. It just can't be a particularly Catholic charity. It can't be we're going to go spread the word of Jesus and the Catholic Church in some place charity. But if you have a charity that's like, hey, anyone who wants to can come to this soup kitchen or whatever, that might be eligible for federal dollars, especially if you don't preach while you're there. The fact that a Catholic priest at some point has gotten federal money does not in any way change the establishment clause and how it, in fact, does create a separation of church and state. The Real Sharknado Shark says, you must understand, the First Amendment is based on the Christian principle. Mainly the principle of ignoring the Bible. Yeah, there are a lot of Christians who like to ignore a lot of the Bible. In fact, frequently the parts I think are least to be ignored, right? Like, there's a lot of things where it's hard to get a consistent one answer about a topic from the Bible. But I've said this many, many times. You know what's not hard to get from the Bible as a very consistent theme throughout? The obligation to take care of the poor, the needy, the orphan, the widow, and the prisoner. Things that Christians in America, by and large, not universally, but by and large, are really, really bad at doing. If you want evidence of that, check out that woman who cold called a whole bunch of churches to see if they would be willing to give a bottle of formula, or a can of formula, I don't know, to a presumably starving baby. And the number of them who said no, which is the vast majority of the churches she called. Not all of them. Which, hey, good on those churches. But yeah, the general tenor of Christianity in America, not in a good place right now.
Well, now, obviously, these guys weren't thinking of total separation between church and state, were they?
That in no way connects to that, Ken. You're going to have to do a whole lot more than say, a Catholic priest once got $500 from the federal government. Also, I'm just taking a drink. I can't with this. I also don't know that that's actually true. I'm just taking Ken's word for it because it doesn't matter. But I would also suspect that it's not actually true.
Same guys, same day, voted that money to a Catholic priest.
Okay.
Lots more on separation of church and state on video number 4. It's perfectly fine, though, for the church to influence the state. They're supposed to try to influence the state.
I mean, that is not a universal belief among Christians. There are plenty of Christians who think that they should staying separate from the world, which is a thing the Bible says to do, that they should refrain from voting or lobbying or engaging with the government to any degree beyond that which is required by law for them to do. Like the Jehovah's Witnesses. They don't vote. So, yeah, there are in fact Christians who would disagree with you there, Kent. And the other thing is, yeah, everyone would like to see a government who has laws that are in line with their personal ideals, right? I know I would. I don't think too many people can honestly say, I would prefer a government that does not align with my ideals. That's not special. But the question still is, does that give us license to teach religious doctrines in science class? And the answer is no.
What's happened in the last 100 years particularly, many churches have given up being churches and become corporations.
This is one of his stupid conspiracy theories. This is related to Kent Hovind's sovereign citizen bullshit. He's going to say that once you agree to be a 501, whatever the designation is for churches, I don't remember. It's not 501c3. That's for other organizations. But once you do that, you've now bound your church to the laws of the country or whatever. And it's not really true. It does mean that if you want to stay tax exempt, you're going to have to follow certain rules. But you can just pay taxes and then do whatever you want as a church. Well, I mean, you can't break other laws. But hey, don't be a tax exempt organization. That's fine. Pay taxes. Great. Charybdis, who's been a member for 54 months, says, has Kent already pulled the no truth Christian fallacy on those who don't do what he does? I don't think he has actually in this particular, like today, but he probably will. Lieutenant Method Navigator for $5 says, I smell sovsit bullshit, the only kind of sovsit ideas. Yeah. No, this is getting into his sovsit nonsense. Now, Kent doesn't like to identify as a sovsit because, well, I think he knows how generally poorly regarded and how unsuccessful sovsits are. But he certainly does a lot of sovsit stuff. He tried to sue Eric Hovind in a sovsit court, which, okay, I want to say this. That counts as arbitration, and you can agree with someone to settle a dispute that would otherwise be a lawsuit in a sovereign citizen court. Right? That's perfectly fine. You sign a contract saying that you'll both abide by whatever decision is made by the sovsit court, and you can do that. But you have to both agree. If you just file a lawsuit in a sovereign citizen court, the person who you file it against can just ignore it. Nothing will happen to them. Which is, of course, what Eric Hovind did. Why wouldn't he? He knows he would win any lawsuit like that from Kent in a real court. So why would he go to a court where he has a chance of losing? Let's see. Oh. I need to switch my view so I can see your full name, Princess Censor Dinosaur Mishkin. Thank you very much for 10 Dapper Dinosaur memberships. I will take 10 drinks. Thank you so much. All right, here we go. Well, I take 10 drinks, which takes a little while. I'm going to have Bent tell you what his favorite Godzilla movie is of the ones we've seen so far.
My favorite Godzilla movie of the ones we've seen so far is King Kong vs. Godzilla, which I think is the second or third one, if I recall correctly. And in the English dub, there's a line in there that made me laugh when I was a little kid, and it's unfortunately not in the actual Japanese language.
Yeah.
But the guy swings out over the ledge and he yells, "Stop it, you're not Tarzan." And boy, when I was 4, that was the funniest thing I had ever heard.
All right. Let's see. I am checking at Vishanti's request for whether or not we can get a new badge or emoji. Or emoji, really. All right. Okay. This says I need 21 members, but I'm pretty darn sure that's a lie. I'm pretty sure it's more like 121. And actually, now that I'm looking at it, it's probably more like 135. Because here's the thing. YouTube always lies about that number. So, in fact, let's actually use like a Google to see if we can figure this out. So, let's see. I have... let's see. So, I have 24 emojis. So, let's see. YouTube... Ship emojis. Let's see what the thresholds are. Just trying to see what the actual number. Oh, and then Princess Censored Dinosaur Michigan just sent another 10. My goodness. Where? Why is it not just coming up? It used to come up. You used to be able to just search this and get a number. I'm guessing it's I'm guessing it's now like 120 something. Is the probable answer. But let's take 10 more drinks while Bent tells you what his second favorite Godzilla movies of the ones we've seen so far is.
My second favorite Godzilla movie is the original Godzilla movie from 1954. It's got a great soundtrack. I really
Sure does.
like it.
All right. Let's see. So thank you very much for those 20. That is extremely generous, and I really do appreciate it. And yeah, right-handed Sith, YouTube lies. It's true. I know, shocking, isn't it? Yeah. So I will double check at the end of this on the extreme off chance that we get enough to actually trigger the next emoji. I think the actual number I need to get to is like 600, and I'm at 400 something right now. So I think that's the case.
The church becomes a 501c3 corporation in order to give a
It's actually not 501c3. It's something else, but I don't remember what it is, and I don't really care.
tax write-off. That's their excuse, and it goes back to the love of money, root of all evil.
Kent, if you want to pay taxes, feel free, but we know you don't. Because that's what you got in trouble for. This right here is Kent telling people, basically, hey, what if you just commit tax fraud and say it's because you're a church? Well, we know what happens. You spend nearly a decade in prison.
They are now not really a church anymore. They're an agent of the state.
No, that is not what being a nonprofit means. Ugh. Taking a drink. Imagine thinking that just registering as a nonprofit means you're an agent of the state. What a dumbass.
See, the state gives corporations the right to exist.
No, it recognizes them for legal purposes. So what is the point of a corporation, right? Like, fundamentally, what is it legally that is important? Well, what it comes down to is making it easier for you to have, like, property titles in the name of a corporation, right? So let's say I want this channel to be a corporation that can live on past me or whatever, or that can have mutual ownership, and then maybe I can divest myself from someday. And we say that, I don't know, here we go. This microphone stand adapter, right here. Who does this belong to? Like, Bent, what do you think? Like, literally, who does this belong to?
It belongs to you.
Right, but me personally, right?
Yeah.
So if I wanted to hand this channel to someone else, and there's no corporation associated with it, unless I specifically hand this to the person who I'm handing the channel to, this just comes with me, right? It's mine.
Right.
But let's say you don't want that for your business. You want to be able to put things in the name of the business, so that way you could sell the business as a whole to someone and they would get all the property. Or let's say you want to open it up to shareholders so that they can all have a part of the business, which makes them all part owners. But you don't want to hand out like titles and deeds every time you do this. That's what a corporation is ultimately for. Now, it gets way more complicated than that, but fundamentally, the reason corporations exist in the first place is so that you can say, you know who owns this? Dapper Dinosaur Incorporated owns this. Not this guy, not Bent, Dapper Dinosaur Incorporated. This guy only owns it to the degree to which he owns Dapper Dinosaur Incorporated, which he could change the amount, and then he would change how much he owns this, all the way down to 0. And whoever owns Dapper Dinosaur Incorporated after he changes it to 0, that's who owns this because he owns Dapper Dinosaur Incorporated. If you want to sue Dapper Dinosaur Incorporated, you don't have to know my name and address. You just have to know the name of the company, Dapper Dinosaur Incorporated, and its address. That's why you can do things like sue Amazon, which they've lost lawsuits before. That's why you don't have to sue Jeff Bezos personally, and then also every single shareholder individually. There's a lot of stuff that corporations have gotten up to that is horrible, and there should be a lot of legal remedies for this. But the basic idea of what a corporation is, that it's a fictional entity that numerous people can be part of, that can hold property, that is the point. The reason you can sue Amazon is because corporations are things that can have titles to things. even though they're not literal people. That's what legal personhood is originally supposed to mean. That they can own property like a person. Roshina for $4.99 says, Kent needs to reread Santa Clara County versus Southern Pacific Railroad Company. I don't think Kent could possibly have read it in the first place. Never mind reread it. So, there is that. But, yeah. Noble Payne says, reasonable dapper is reasonable. Thank you, I try to. Oh, court, that's right-handed Sith makes a really good point. Dapper Dinosaur says, ostensibly, Vishanti owns it, as she owns everything, including our souls, but he sells souls like the sole of your foot. I mean, look, if Vishanti owns the sole of my foot, then she's doing a terrible job with the upkeep. Because at least one of my feet could really use with some time with one of those pumice stones, which I have 2 of, which I don't use nearly often enough.
God gives his church the right to exist. And one of the dumbest things any church could do would be to become a 501c3 corporation.
Oh, no one's forcing them to.
We cover lots more of that on video number 5 of our series about churches incorporating. Major mistake. And
well, here's the thing. If you don't incorporate as a church, right, then there's no such thing as church property. Right? So who owns the church building? Who owns the pews? Who owns the Bibles? Who owns the hymnals? Who owns the projector equipment, since I'm pretty sure Kent goes to the kind of church that has a lot of projector equipment? Or would go to that kind of church. Who physically owns that stuff? Whose name is on the legal documents? Well, if the church is incorporated, it's easy. It's whatever the church is. And then when the pastor moves on or dies or whatever, the church keeps that stuff. And if that church doesn't want to pay taxes, well, then they're going to have to register that corporation under some kind of nonprofit situation. That's what's happening. Look, if you want to have a bunch of people meet in your house or some other building that you own, and you want to call it a church, and you don't want to file any taxes for that organization because you're not taking a salary and there's no corporately owned property that you need to have a corporation for, have at it. No one's going to stop you, but you're going to pay property taxes on that if it's your personal property, and you're going to pay taxes if you do start taking a salary on that. And if you start, like, I don't know, doing any other kind of stuff that would normally incur tax penalties, you're going to pay them if it's your personal property and your personal project. But you can do it. Lieutenant Math Navigator for $5 says, Kent has copious amounts of projection regardless of the equipment he controls.
Yeah, that's true.
That is true.
Very true.
It's extremely true. That's really good. I like that one. Maybe it's the rum, but you guys you're killing it today. All right.
And it's easy to get out of, to undo that. You can contact Pastor Mooneyhan if you want more information on how to get unincorporated. His number is 352-498-0384.
And just doxing someone else. Okay. Please don't call this number.
I call him about once a week, with different questions on things. He's coming here tomorrow, as a matter of fact.
Oh, so that's the guy who gave you all your tax advice, huh, Kent? Remind me, Ben, how did that work out? How did Kent's taxes work out?
I would say poorly for Kent.
Yeah, it does. It does seem like that, doesn't it? Jeez.
Okay, next week we'll take up more questions and answers from our frequently asked question section, which is on our videotape number 7.
By the way, this series, CSE 104, goes to 10. This is the 5th one. This is the end of the 5th one. We're going to be doing the 6th one next week. Well, we're starting the 6th one.
And try to finish in the next 4 or 5 weeks, whatever we've got left in this class, and get everything done on our Q&A. Thanks for joining us. See you next week.
All right. Well, that is it. Like, literally, that's it. That's the whole video. So, we're close enough that I'm not going to try to open up the next video. We'll just be done with that right there. Okay. So, we did not quite get to the 20, unless people want to send in, like, $8, $10 super chats in the next few minutes, which I don't think you will, but that's okay. I need a break from this. It's getting a little bit, you know what happened. At least those of you who wear suits. All right. Bent, do you have anything coming up that you want to tell people about before we get out of here?
No, I do not.
All right. Well, I do. So let's see. Annoying Newsletter, who's been a member for 28 months, says, who gets Ken's VCR farm? Eric is actually the answer to that, because he transferred control of all of his ministry's property, which wasn't a corporation, by the way. Was a corporation, by the way, to Eric. And then Eric transferred all of it to his ministry. So, yeah, the answer is Eric. All right, so what have we got coming up? So tomorrow, which is New Year's Eve, at least here, I'm going to be starting at, I believe, 8 p.m. and that's Pacific, and going until midnight Pacific. So that's 11 p.m. Eastern until like 3 a.m. Eastern or something. I'm doing a New Year's stream. I'm going to be sending the invite out to a few different people, but Chesh has already agreed to be there, so it'll at least be me and Chesh. We're going to be taking a look at the ramblings of a self-proclaimed Egyptologist about how actually Egyptology proves the Bible is correct about the Exodus and the flood and whatnot. Which, spoiler, Bent, what do you think? Is that accurate?
I would guess no.
Also, I definitely closed out that video and then had the stupid pop up over Ben's face, so that's a Dapper as a professional. We'll take a drink for that.
Whoops.
It happens. It's fixed now. All right. So that is tomorrow. Then on Thursday at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, Creationist Lies About Uluru and the Three Sisters with Ron Neller. So Ron Neller is going to tell us, lies about Uluru, or as you might know it, Ayers Rock in Australia, as well as the Three Sisters in Australia. And it's the Three Sisters that are the three rock outcroppings on a ridge in southeastern Australia, not the three islands in northeastern Australia that have the same name. Which he'll also point out that that's what he's talking about. Right-handed Sith says, Reformed Egyptology? I mean, yeah, basically. It's at least as dumb as Reformed Egyptology. All right, so then on, that's Thursday, Friday, over on Top Hats Off, I'm going to be back streaming probably with Chesh, and Chesh is going to be handing me the concept reference art that she has for a character for Wrath and Glory, and I'm going to at least begin the process of translating that character into a 3D model. Because what I would like to do is get 3D character art for the characters for that game when we eventually get to it. But what Chesh and I want to do is have her be the one who creates a 2D sketch and reference for the character, and then sends it to me, who then implements it in 3D. That's our plan for Wrath and Glory. I think it'll be fun. Then on Saturday, I will be back for Dapper Reacts, presumably with Vishanti and Kip Davis, although who knows, maybe one or both of them will abandon me again. And I'll be devastated about it. Then on the next Tuesday, we're back for the next Kent with Bent. We'll be starting CSE 104 Class 6. So stay tuned for that. And I think that's it for me for the next week or so. So, Bent, unless you have thought anything in the last minute, we're going to get out of here slightly early.
Okay.
All
Sounds
right.
good.
If you're interested and you have access to the Discord server, please head over there because we are going to be watching the 2014 Godzilla movie. Because we're on that one now. So, I'll see you then, and I hope to see all of you tomorrow night for a 4-hour New Year's stream late at night. I'm going to have to try to get a lot of sleep tomorrow. All right. Bye, everybody. And
Bye.
furthermore, ICE must be abolished.
Hey, before you leave, I just want to take a second to thank my patrons and channel members, especially those pledging $20 or above. Bent Hovind, Tapioca Weasel, Sphincter of Doom, Regios, Landon Knoll, Ian Chen, Eleron Teller, Phil Rivera, Kelvin Brostick Van Manen, David Hercules, Joshua Geese, Vollus, Dan Sheedy, Pega Jace, The Plastic Mouse, Arrow Dodger, Gordon Love Science, Amber Athelian, Prixie Purple, Agricola Siqua, and John Ackerman. It's because of my channel members and patrons whom you're seeing on screen that this channel can stay afloat. Without you, it would all shut down. If you want to join the team, there's a link to join the channel below this video, and there's a link to join the Patreon in the description. On the Patreon, you can get a 15% discount for pledging annually, and either way, you get early access to virtually all of my scripted videos months before they come out for the general public. Thanks for watching.